Hello everyone, welcome to another video. My name is Mariso, and in today's video I'll be talking about these two gimbals to help you decide which one you should be getting. If you're new here, I welcome you and make sure you hit the subscribe button for future content similar to this one. And if you're already subscribed and you came back, thank you again so much for coming here again. In today's video I'll be talking about these two gimbals. Two of Zhiyun's newer gimbals, excluding their Smooth series gimbals. These ones are the Crane series, the M3 that came out near the end of 2021, and this one, the Crane M2S, that just came out a few days ago in March of 2022. And right off the bat, you can see that both gimbals look quite similar in terms of style and the way they look. At first glance, the main difference is that the M2S is a little bit smaller than the Crane M3. I have full video reviews on these two gimbals, so if you wanted to check them out, I'll leave links in the description below to full-fledged reviews of these two gimbals. So in today's video, I'll be showing you some footage that I've been taking with these gimbals, as well as go over the specs of these gimbals and the physical look and overall handling of these two gimbals, and hopefully help you decide which one you should be getting. So let's first talk about the price. That's usually the main factor when considering buying a gimbal, I think, at least for me. The Crane M2S is definitely your cheaper gimbal at $269 US. This one is $100 more expensive, so it's $369 US. And this is the price for the standard model, which only includes the gimbal. This M2S comes also in a combo package, which includes the camera bag and the phone mount, and that is going to cost you $349 US. If you wanted to get the combo package on the Crane M3, you're going to pay a little bit more as well, $449 US. It comes with this bag, which is the same for both gimbals, the exact same bag. This is what the bag looks like, if you wanted to see. It's actually really nicely built. Both combo packages come with the same phone mount right here, which is quite sturdy in my opinion. Very solidly built. The other difference in price is that the Crane M3 also comes in a Pro package, and that includes the extra attachment for the microphone and also includes that shotgun mic by Zhiyun. And that package is going to cost you $649 US. Both of these gimbals also come with these magnetic color gels, a blue, a red, a yellow, and an orange that you can attach to the fill light, which is a new thing on these Zhiyun gimbals. In terms of weight, the M2S is a lot lighter than the M3. The M2S is about 500 grams and the M3 is about 750 grams. So it's about 250 grams heavier than this one, but it's still a very small and light gimbal too. When this first came out, I thought it was like the tiniest and cutest gimbal ever that could fit a full frame camera. And this one came and it was even tinier than this one. So if you're looking for a small gimbal, this is the one to go for. But at the end of the day, it's going to depend on the setup and the type of camera that you want to mount on your gimbal. The M2S has a smaller tripod leg right here. It's significantly smaller actually. I tried putting on rest mode when I had my full frame camera on this gimbal. It still did the job. I was still able to just lay it down and put in when I was not shooting. But this one definitely feels a lot more sturdy and more secure when you're laying it down with your camera. So both of these gimbals are pretty similar, but there are a few things that are better built, in my opinion, on the Crane M3. The M2S has more plastic components, and this one has more aluminum components, so it feels a little bit more sturdy than the M2S. In terms of the handlebar where you hold the gimbal, they're both about the same, in my opinion. But I do feel the grip a little bit better on the M3. I think it's because the front part over here where this trigger is, it's a little bit more comfortable for me as opposed to this trigger. I feel like this trigger is a little bit too big compared to this one. I'd much rather have this one. This Crane M3 also has this dial that you can use when you attach your camera that is compatible with this gimbal. You're able to control some settings with this dial. I haven't used it yet. I didn't find the use for it, so I never really touch it. This one does not have that dial at the front, just the trigger button. So both of these gimbals have a USB-C charging port right here, and they both are compatible with fast charge. So on the M3, you're able to charge fully in about 2 hours. On the M2S in about 1 hour and 40 minutes. This one is going to give you about 8 hours of battery run time, and this one a little bit over 10 hours. For a full day shoot, you should be okay on a full day battery charge. But for peace of mind, you could also bring an external power supply and plug it in and charge it at the same time while you're using it. So that's definitely a plus. And having this 1/4-inch expansion port on the side of this gimbal makes it useful for you to rig this gimbal even further, perhaps to mount your external power supply or an external monitor if you wanted to do that. The power button is a little bit different for these two gimbals. On the M3, you press and hold until it turns on, like so. Whereas the M2S, the power button feels a little bit more plasticky, and to turn it on, you push it up and hold it and wait for the gimbal to turn on. The other thing that you'll see right away is the difference in the screen. On the Crane M3, you get this touch screen, which is super useful. It also tells you right here, axis lock. Right here it says axis lock, which is super useful in case you're not able to balance your camera on the gimbal. It may be because your axes are locked, which is the case. So it's really neat that it shows you that. I didn't know that. So here on the M3, you're able to, it's a touchscreen LCD screen, which is really useful. You're able to check your balance right here, calibrate your gimbal, perform parameter settings, and change modes right here. You can also easily change modes here with the M button, which will toggle between different modes, but because I don't have a gimbal right now, it's not letting me do that. All right, so on the Zhiyun M2S, you have a screen that is not touch screen. So you go onto the menu button right here, and it lets you go into motor, advanced, or joystick, where you can here change the smoothness of your gimbal, specific controls. You can change how smooth you want your gimbal to be. The motor, where you're able to do a auto calibration on the motor or some custom settings for your tilt, roll, pan, etc. It's not as visual as this one. I like the screen on the M3 quite a lot more, but you're paying a little bit more for this gimbal as opposed to this one. You have a little record button right here, as well as on the M3. So if you have a camera that is compatible with this gimbal, you can just press the record button. It's going to record on your camera. When you have your camera on and your gimbal calibrated and ready to go, this M button is going to toggle through some of the gimbal modes. So in terms of gimbal modes, both of these gimbals have the same modes. They have follow mode, pan follow, lock, POV, go mode, vortex, portrait mode. Portrait mode, as of the making of today's video, it's not yet available on the M2S, but Zhiyun has said that it will be available on a future firmware upgrade. The joystick feels a little bit better on the M3, in my opinion. It's more of a game controller type of joystick. And this one on the M2S is a little bit backwards, similar to the one on the Zhiyun Crane version 2 or the Crane 2 that had a joystick similar to this one, which I didn't really like. I felt that it was quite difficult to have a smooth control. Now, if you flip it to the side, this is where we access the new fill light that comes with these two gimbals. On the M2S, your fill light is only one color temperature, it's 5500 Kelvin, and you have dual color temperature light on the Crane M3. So to turn that on the M2S, you hold up on that button until it turns on. And on this one, you hold it down and it turns on. Another cool thing on the M3 that the M2S doesn't have is that you're able to, once you press it once, you're able to change the intensity of your light all the way from 10 to 100, which is really cool. And press it one more time, you change the color temperature of the light. Right there. So that is something that you do not get on the M2S. On the M2S, if you wanted to change the intensity of this fill light, you would have to push the button up to increase the intensity or push the button down to decrease it. And I think there's 4 levels of that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, 4 levels of intensity, and you cannot change the color temperature on the M2S. Both of these gimbals have the same quick release system, which is Zhiyun's Quick Release System 4.0. So in order to release the plate, push this knob to the right, and then press the unlock button, this red button, release the plate. To put it back on, push this button again to the right, and just insert the plate until that locks up again. Right here, you'll see as well that there is another difference over here. The M3 has the ability to be upgraded with the audio module to connect audio. You have another input over here with the mic, but on the M2S is just the USB-C port. One thing that they did improve in on the M2S is that this motor right here, it's a little bit lower, so the angle makes it easier for you to mount a longer lens. But because this is a smaller gimbal, you might not be able to still balance a heavier lens setup with a full frame camera or a heavy lens on your APS-C camera. But they do give you that a little bit more clearance over here to make it easier for you to balance different camera setups. Both of these gimbals have 3-axis locking mechanisms. They are not located in the same place, unfortunately. So on the M3, you can see this knob here. It locks this axis. Over here on the M2S, you get these ones right here that are not as securely built, in my opinion. So they're a little bit more finicky, but they do the job. The one that locks the pan axis over here is at the front. On the M2S, over here. On the M3, there's this one right there. A lot more solidly built, in my opinion. And then the last axis is the one over here on the M2S, which is the same one as the one up here. Lock it and you lock that axis. And on the M3, that axis lock is located right here, underneath, right here, all the way behind at the bottom of this motor. So this is one thing that I do not like. It's a little bit hard to find this axis and lock it. When I first got this M3, I was able to easily find the locking mechanisms for these 2 axes, but on this third one, it was a little bit difficult because I couldn't find it. And it was because it was right tucked in right down there, below, underneath everything. Both of these gimbals are able to hold phones, action cameras, APS-C crop sensor cameras, point and shoot cameras, and even full frame cameras. I was able to mount both on these gimbals, the A7 III with the 17-28 Tamron lens, and also this A7 IV with the 7-28 Tamron lens on the M3, but I was not able to get it balanced on this gimbal, so I had to try a different lens. I had a lighter Tamron 20mm lens that I was able to balance on this gimbal. And the footage that I got from both of these gimbals was really good using my full frame camera. I did find that the M3 was a little bit more steady and a little bit stronger in handling my full frame cameras. So to help you decide about which gimbal you should be getting, if you're watching this video, is because you're looking for a tiny, compact, and budget gimbal. If you really wanted the cheapest one out there, then this one would be the one to go for, the M2S. But if you're able to spend a little bit more money and you don't mind the slightly bigger size on the M3, then I would definitely go for the M3. They both are very good gimbals and both are very solidly built. And if you're someone who likes to travel light, you'll want a gimbal for travel or for everyday vlogging and you want to travel light, either of these is going to get the job done. The other thing to consider would be as well, your camera setup. If you're on a phone, on an action camera, or a point and shoot or anything like that, either of these gimbals are going to work just fine. But if you wanted to use a full frame camera, think about the lens that you have available or the lens that you'll be using on these gimbals. So that might be the deciding factor for you if you're shooting on a full frame mirrorless camera. There's a full spec sheet on Zhiyun's website, and I'll also try to link that in the description on the different types of camera and lens combinations that will fit each of these two gimbals. So that's it for today's video. Let me know in the comments below which gimbal do you currently own or which one are you planning to get. So if you have any other questions, feel free to DM me on Instagram. I'll try my best to help you out and answer some of your questions. So I hope you enjoyed this video, you found this video helpful and useful, and if you did, hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next one.